Let me go get the chats, and then we'll kick off everybody here.
Yep. As soon as it kicks off and I see it live,
Yeah, I think it should be live. Everything should be live now, I think. Did it not start? Rumble?
Not yet. Not yet.
There it goes.
All right.
There we go. Okay. Because I hit start there, and all of a sudden, I guess it wasn't doing anything. I don't know.
Okay.
Trying to get all the chats and everything like that popped out too.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I still don't see it on my end.
Yeah, not yet. Not
On my
yet.
end.
Yeah, not yet. I have had it once or twice in the past 2 weeks where when I start it, it says you can't find your stream key. And I start it again, and it's fine.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Is it up?
Yeah. It's up on the all, but not on the live. There we go. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Is
Cool.
it up?
All right. So, all right. It shows
Now
live.
we're
Okay.
good.
So we're live everywhere. There's Hummus Hero, who's popped in already. Karami's in as
Hey,
well.
Hummus.
Hi guys. Good to see you.
All right, hang on. Let me get the YouTube. Let me get them both popped out real quick.
Okay. No, that's no problem. We're
Pop
kind of
out.
doing a slow start
What?
today, guys. We got extra people coming in with HTK coming in tonight, and I was doing last minute things to kind of get everything kind of popped out so we could make sure that we could interact with everybody the way we normally do. So we're just now getting set up. So bear with us just a few minutes. I'm also going to get links out for anybody who's like interested in coming and hanging out.
Yep, that's what I'm doing now. That's the only thing I've got to do when you because stream. Well, OBS depending on how you do it. I still do, set that in advance on Rumble. So I still set up the stream ahead of time, and then just when I go live, it because I don't put a template. I don't put a stream key to a template.
I do have a template, and it does make things easier. Hey, Shode, what's up? Hey,
Oh,
Zombie.
sure.
Wow,
Sure.
we got a crowd
Zombie.
over on YouTube already.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see who all
All right,
pops
let me go.
in and says hi on the Rumble side, but the YouTube side is pretty lively tonight. Thank you guys for popping in. We do have a guest tonight. We have HTK. Those of you guys are familiar with the original Next Level Gaming Show, are pretty familiar with Pete already, but he's deemed us worthy to spend time with tonight to hang out and talk about emulation and soft modding and things like that and how that kind of helps with game preservation, which we've talked about multiple times on this show. But as always, oh, there's Galaxy. Hey, Galaxy, what's up, man?
Galaxy.
So before we do that, we're going to kind of go around, see how everybody's weekend went, see how everybody's doing. There's Shode, there's Galaxy, there's Zombie. There's that Mike guy. I can't seem to get rid of him.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't fire him. He's under some sort of contract where you can't get rid of him.
Ugh. Need to fix that. He's the only one on Rumble right now. That's all right. That's all good, man.
Oh, no,
There's Greenhound. There's Greenhound on the Rumble side. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Everybody's starting to pop in. So we're going to go ahead and start with HDK here tonight and let him kind of let us know what he's kind of been up to, what he's been playing, what he did this weekend, just whatever you want to talk about as far as how your week's gone. Because I don't think I've ever actually had a chance to get you on this show before, so this is going to be quite fun.
This is a
the
first.
inaugural, my debut. So, but yeah, what I've been doing this weekend, I've been doing a couple of things this weekend. Let me just first talk about the easy stuff. It's like played some Guild Wars 2 on the PC. Really love that game. Have you played it, Nick? Guild Wars 2?
I put myself on mute while I was opening a soda so you wouldn't hear it crack open. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Have you played Guild Wars 2?
I think I dipped into it like once or twice.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't completely to my taste. I played more of Guild Wars 1 and I thought it was okay. And then I jumped into Guild Wars 2 and I thought the hub and everything was kind of weird. and I never got too deep into it. I was more of a Diablo guy than a Guild Wars guy.
I see. So yeah, so I played that. I played a little bit of Forza Horizon 5, and but my big thing this weekend was I soft modded my my original Xbox, like Mike, and because we got all excited after talking to Perry from the Game Complainers. It's like, oh, that's soft modding is really a thing, and it's like pretty easy to soft mod it. Now, upgrading hard drives in it, it's a different story. And
That's a whole separate.
I think we'll
Yeah,
get into
apparently
it a little,
that's a
little
thing.
later.
Mike was talking about that too a little bit on like your last night stream, because you did like a Sunday night stream where you were messing with it live.
Well, I started playing, well, because I was playing Still Wakes the Deep, and I finished it. So I was like, since I'm going to be on RetroRoots tomorrow and not able to really kind of show this off, let me give you guys kind of a sneak peek, because most people that watch my Monday Night Retros, when I try to do emulation, I have to do it on an Atari VCS, which is a pain in my rear.
Yeah,
because
that had been your preferred emulation box for like the longest time.
Well, because it's the one that did the most emulation for me, and you could.
What's up, Vinny?
You could put a. Hey, Vinny. And Showed, I thought you were talking to me when you said Mike. Is there another Mike in the chat that I don't know about? Is there somebody emulating me? Huh?
Is it the soft modded Mike?
Yeah, Galaxy, from what I've seen further on, that kind of seems to be more the case. Guild Wars 2 seems to be a little bit more of an MMO, but it doesn't really fully commit to the MMO, so it's kind of in this weird limbo state between the two.
Yeah, maybe that's why I like it.
It doesn't make it a bad game. It just made it a little confusing to me, because I'm used to playing those kinds of games one way or another, so it just made it kind of weird in my brain. Maybe that's why I just didn't latch onto it real quick.
Right.
Could be. So,
well,
anyway,
for people watching this and are interested, the base game is free on Steam or through their.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm trying to get people into Killer Instinct right now. I've got the guys that do the Rumble Fight Club. Since it's free to at least have the rotating character, I'm like, for the love of God, just at least try the game. It's free. You can't argue with me on free.
Yeah, free. I always say free is cheap. I need to play that with my arcade stick, because I never played just fighting games with just a regular controller. That sucks.
I have not played Killer Instinct with the X game.
I need to get one of those. I think it's called Wing Commander. It's like a USB adapter that lets you use any of your arcade sticks with any of the consoles. And honestly, Microsoft pisses me off so much. If I put an arcade stick in PC mode, the Xbox should recognize it. I'm sorry, like it's a PC in the facade of an Xbox. Just let me put something in PC mode and use it. Stop making me buy a third arcade stick. Not cool.
So I know, but you got to remember, they try to keep it a closed. I don't agree with it. They try to keep it a closed.
What? Okay, we can get into that at another time, because they're not closing anything. They're throwing everything to every other platform.
They
have an open door policy now, Mike.
I know. Don't get me started.
No, hang on. They put it somewhere. They put it on others, but others are not allowed to come in.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a one-way street.
It's a one-way street. Right. You're
It's like friends with benefits.
Knocking, but you can't come in.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what Pete did this weekend, Mike. What did you get into?
So I was doing a lot of the same things. So I spent Saturday relaxing and downloading emulators, and again, that's what I was kind of showing off on Monday. To finish that up, the problem with the VCS is my Windows 11 build is on an external hard drive, which anybody who tries to run an operating system on an external hard drive would know what the problems with that is.
That sounds kind of terrible, because it doesn't boot up and mount first like anything else does. So And
Well,
making sure
boot
you
up
get the boot
time.
partition on there and it boots up first is a pain in the ass.
So that, but the VCS does very well with that as long as you plug the drive in before you fire up the VCS. The problem is, because it's an external drive, even on a USB 3 connector, it's freaking slow.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's always going to be
booting it up,
slower than something that's physically connected inside the hardware because the
yes. So
USB bus doesn't come up first, Mike. You know that. It's because of how
well,
everything
it's not,
boots up. The USB bus is
but
like the last thing to come up.
it's also just slow because it's USB 3 bus and not a SATA.
It's
True.
still a
And Vinny, if you
small
want to
straw.
do Killer Instinct, they're all playing it on Wednesday. I don't think anybody's going to complain if you jump in. Literally, I don't think anybody's going to care.
It's on Game Pass. It's on Game Pass. So it would take me an hour just to boot the thing up before the stream. And then sometimes I would just have some serious issues with it.
Right.
So by getting back to the Xbox, the OG Xbox and the things that it does, now that I've got it the way I want it, that's going to be where I'm going to do my 8 and 16-bit emulation going forward.
Okay.
So, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we go through tonight. But that's
Show's already asking what did y'all use to emulate, and I've got RetroArch set up in a few places, and I've got EMU deck set up. That's what I use. I've had a bunch of RetroPies in the past. I've built those. They're pretty brain dead to build now. They've got everything kind of nicely packaged. You can install the emulators through RetroArch. They have most of the main emulators set up in their system where you can just download the emulator and it'll install. Then you just got to put the files in the right place, right? Finding the ROMs is honestly the hardest part of emulation now, not the emulators. I also have it set up on PC, and I have the EMU deck, which is a little bit more work because that's set up on a Steam Deck, right? But it does a very nice job of incorporating things into the main Steam Deck interface once you have it set up. So your collections kind of get put into like collection buckets and things like that. It sort of helps you organize and sort your games and things of that nature. And from that perspective, it's probably one of my favorite ways to do emulation because if I want to mess with it on my computer, I just hook it up and set it up through my 4K utility with my capture card. And then if I want it on the go, I just unplug it and I take it on the go, or I plug it in downstairs and it's hooked up on the TV downstairs, and there you go. So, I mean, it's super simple and super flexible. That's one of the reasons I like it so much. But I also have it set up on PC too, so if there's some stuff I don't want to try to migrate over there because I don't want to set it up and put it in a desktop mode and go through all that rigmarole, I can just download it on my desktop and run it that way.
Yeah. So
now, Mike's using his Xbox that he's got set up, but
right,
and I'm pretty sure Pete's got
prior to that.
Pete, you got the same setup, right? You're both using the Xbox.
I don't have the emulation set up yet, so.
Yeah. So prior to that,
but I will. I mean, I've RetroArch on my PC. I have it even on my iPhone. They allow that now.
Yeah,
too.
RetroArch will run on everything.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yep. And I was running that on the PC. I was actually running that a long time ago when I was doing emulation on the Xbox One, my original Xbox One. But on the OG Xbox, I can run RetroArch, but it's a lot more limited in what cores you can download and what cores because it comes on Xbox, it comes as a package, not something where you can go in and download new cores. It comes in a package. I found a guy on a forum called EMU Extras, and this guy his screen name is MadMab. MADMAB, and he's been porting some of those cores to Xbox. So Neo Genesis, Neo SNES, SNES 9X, all these ones you get. Step in. All these ones you get. He's got individual emulators for, and what's nice is the soft mod menu has an emulator section. And it just lists them all, and you just pick from there. So it's a nice little front end. and it works great. It so far the only things that I've seen that you have to account for are 32-bit games. So my 32X collection, I have to run those in 480p. If I try to run them in 720 or 1080, the frame rate's really slow. If I run them
Okay.
at 480, which is perfectly fine because the Genesis was 240, they run great. So I'm finding everything I need there.
So I think here's a good time to kind of pause and talk about like emulation and FPGA and all that stuff. The EverDrive I would pretty much consider kind of a mix. It's more of an FPGA solution to emulation because you are loading a bunch of the ROMs onto the cart, but it's going into the original hardware. So yeah,
Right.
it's kind of emulation, but it's
I,
more hardware focused emulation, which is
I'd
what
almost
FPGA is.
and I wouldn't even call it emulation. I would call it storage because really what you're doing is you're loading stuff from a memory card rather than a disk, and you're running it on and
You're running it on the original hardware.
right.
Yeah.
So you're not really emulating anything. You're simply just
Yeah,
launching
and
an
an
ISO
FPGA unit
instead of
is effectively an emulation that emulates closer to the hardware level. So it's
right,
more closer to one to original
Emulation to
hardware,
hardware.
or as close as you're going to get with emulation currently, right?
right.
Whereas a RetroPie and any of these other like emulators and stuff, because you don't have to have like RetroArch installed to run these. You can install things like Dolphin and PSX or PSPP or whatever, and run those independently. I don't know many people that do that. Some people do. I prefer having something like there's Gamer EX, there's RetroArch, which is what I'm currently using, and what those are more front ends for the emulation itself.
Right.
So they help you install and configure the emulators into the system or into the app interface so that you kind of have a clean interface to be able to kind of access these things through rather than accessing them all independently. And so that just kind of makes things a little bit cleaner and puts everything in all in one place, which is why I usually prefer to do those. And it does help you a little bit with the setup, particularly if you're kind of new and you don't know where to go to get all these different emulation engines and stuff like that, or what their names are, or any of that. A lot of these do a really good job of kind of explaining which ones are for which, so that you can more easily get up and going. And Stampede made a comment like emulation's fine, it's just not for him, and it's not for everybody. A lot of
No,
people want
right.
that one-to-one hardware. They want that collection experience. That's the only way they want to play the game. They don't even want the option to be able to do save states or any of that other stuff. And I totally get that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Some people like Zombie are in favor of emulation, particularly with it's like pricey titles on something that's basically being gate kept by what the market will tolerate now as far as ownership of a game. And there's no other way to access it. Now, I know there's certain people that are completely against simulation because just because you can't afford something doesn't mean you should have it anyway. So I
Well,
understand that argument as well.
And
the
also,
the
like eventually, like hardware eventually might die, right?
Right,
So
all the
then at
hardware is
least
eventually going to die.
right.
I
So
mean,
at least now
there's
you have
just
an
no
option
way
to,
around it. Carts
yeah.
will eventually fail.
mhm.
CDs will eventually rot, and so you're left with nothing left unless companies like Nintendo and all those are bringing them out on their services, which is one of the things I kind of currently like about Nintendo. Yeah, it's hard to find their ROMs, but they have a lot of those emulators that are coming packaged with their online service now so that you can just access them as they put games up there, and it's no more extra cost than what it costs you for the yearly thing. I think for both me and Nicole to have the service, it was like $73 for the year. So in terms of an online service and fees, that's pretty freaking cheap, right? It's even cheaper than Game Pass, which is like $15 a month. By the time we get done with that, it's like over $200 for the year. Is it $200 well spent? Yeah, if I put a bit of time into a couple of games on it here and there, absolutely. But it's not the. It doesn't give you quite as much if you're into the retro scene as Nintendo does right now. I don't feel like.
Hmm.
Well, and that's what I like about as much as I we all bemoaned the loss of the Warner Brothers stuff. It's what I really like about Antstream Arcade.
Right. And
And
Stream
they
is
might,
another great solution for that if you're okay with the kind of emulation, because that's what it's
which
basically doing.
absolutely and it's streaming. You have to be okay with that. But if you own an Xbox, it is $80 for your lifetime. That is crazy.
No, that's a great deal so long as
Yeah.
they can keep the licenses. If they keep losing licenses and the library gets smaller and smaller, then that becomes a problem, right?
Well, they lose some and
Yeah.
then they get some, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather have them not lose anything.
No.
And it would be
And
nice to be able to back up games, but honestly, where I'm talking, hey, Scrambles, how's it going? Where I'm talking emulation and its use is,
Scrambles.
I want to say the usefulness of it really kind of starts to taper off right around the 360. And that's completely moving forward no matter how good hardware gets, no matter how good emulation gets. And the reason I say that is too many games past that require online servers to be connected to, and they require too much downloadable content that you may not be able to get your hands on to be able to even function. So I feel like moving forward with like PS4, PS5, and forward, unless something changes, the usefulness you're going to get out of emulation is going to be limited unless it's a console like the Switch that has the majority of the game already on the cart and doesn't
Right.
require a server or something to be connected to be able to play the game.
And that's where streaming services like Game Pass and to an extent PlayStation Plus, where you can stream those, that's where that helps.
Well, and that's part of the
One of
problem, Joe. You can't own everything, and not everybody can keep a CRT in good working order or get all the connections and keep everything in working order to be able to play these things, right? And so that's the main struggle. I would love to have like an NES and a couple of other intro consoles, specifically just for light games, if nothing else, because those are almost impossible to emulate.
when you can't find some of this stuff, that
Right.
people need to remember that too. Not all of this stuff is even available, which makes it difficult to own when you can't even get your hands on it. And it's not, there's a difference between buying it at retail new, where that's what sets the price, and having to deal in the collector market where a collector could just jack a price up arbitrarily on you, and that's not fair. You
Right.
know,
Well, it's not necessarily arbitrary. It depends on the rarity of the card, and there's a lot of factors. But Greenhound also
well,
said the FPGA devices are the future of retro, in opinion. Or that a company in Brazil is producing the canceled Neptune, and that there's a device being made to play all the Sega titles in one kit. And
it
I
would
do
be
think if
nice.
you can get your hands on an FPGA device, that's probably the way to go. Most of the people I know in the retro community that do emulate prefer FPGA over everything else. It's a
I
little
would
bit more
too.
finicky to work with, particularly as you're getting started, is my understanding. And some of the updates aren't as good or as reliable as some of the normal emulator stuff that's been around for and more stable, I want to say, for longer. But it's
It's
definitely
also more
much, much
expensive.
closer to that OG experience.
It's also more expensive, and there are
It is, but
companies
not
that
astronomically so, I don't think.
no, but it was enough. For example, it was enough to derail the Polymega, who originally were going to make an FPGA box, and at the end of the day opted for emulation.
Opted for base emulation, which pissed a lot of the Kickstarter supporters off.
Yep.
And Scepter
Well,
asks, can you still do developer mode on the series consoles? That'd be a good one for like you or Pete to answer.
yep. Yeah, it's still $20.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, and if you really wanted to, a Series S probably is the best emulation box you can get. The processor and the GPU in that will run even PlayStation 2 stuff with zero issue.
Yeah.
I do want to also want to address. I want to make it very clear. For me, emulation is for the stuff that I don't have anymore hardware wise. Like everybody has seen my shelves. 90% of what I emulate, I own. 90%. Yes, there are a couple things that I download that I can't find anywhere, or to that point, I'm not going to pay $1,500 to own. But everything else I own, and I basically rip down and emulate. I do not. I emulate anything I don't have real hardware for. If I can play it on real hardware, I absolutely do. My Sega Saturn, my Sega Dreamcast, OG Xbox is real hardware. Even if I modded it and I rip down my games, they're still my games, and I'm not emulating. I'm
Now
playing it on a.
I've seen you emulate some of those, but that's mostly to keep your discs in good working order. I know you've emulated
I
stuff
don't.
like Sega CD and some of the Saturn stuff when you can because you don't want to risk
Mm.
the disc
So
getting any
I
more
don't
damage
emulate
than it
Saturn.
already has or burning out your hardware.
Well, Saturn I don't emulate, but what I am going to do is I am going to find a memory card replacement, whatever they call that replaces using the discs, because I do want to preserve my games. I've had a couple of instances where I put in a game and it wouldn't load and it wouldn't load, and I started to freak out. And then, like the
Right.
fifth or sixth time, it would load. And that is my launch Xbox. That is that Xbox, or my launch Saturn rather. That Saturn is that is 2005. That is almost a 30-year-old console. I am not kidding. Um, at some point, that laser is going to go. So,
Yeah.
but I will always play on those systems because they are real hardware. The
Yeah, and
Sega
Setzer makes a
CD
good
stuff,
point here too. People are willing to pay those prices for the physical game, which is why they're that expensive.
absolutely. That's what I'm
And see,
looking at.
here's
That
another
there's
problem
the
with the whole
Fenrir.
thing. Like,
Fenrir.
trying to keep these CRTs in working order is difficult. As we get further and further from when CRT TVs were the norm, finding the tubes and the parts to be able to repair them gets harder and harder, right? So unless somebody starts to make a secondhand market where they start manufacturing these again, which could have happened, I don't know 100%. Honestly, at this point, I feel like it's a good idea for people to start almost remanufacturing, maybe at a more increased cost, CRT TVs and the like. Specifically for the culture that's going on with people wanting to do retro games on original hardware.
Right.
Yeah, because you know, for the old systems, I mean, the games were built for CRTs, like the color palettes and the whole blending, especially like like Commodore 64. If you do it like
Yeah,
display it on an LCD, it looks like crap. That needs a
yeah.
CRT because the colors, they kind of blend, and they the different way of intensity, and it lights up. I mean, it's
Well, and
hard
figuring out
Well,
the
to.
so like,
refresh rate too on something like as old as a Commodore 64 game and getting it to look clean as you move,
Mhm.
I would imagine would be even harder than like NES. It's just older hardware, right? Because it came
Yeah,
out in what, 82? I want to say 1982 was the Commodore 64
yeah,
release.
something around that.
something like that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and they're saying CRT manufacturing's gone for good. See, I think there's a market for that to come back. Honestly,
it all depends on who it is. Like we talked about this in the last show, that the younger crowd is starting to embrace that
and there's a
retro,
couple of reasons for
right?
that too. And I think affordability is one of them because I think they're big into the emulation, right? Because you can
Yeah.
just grab a bunch of games for like nothing, and it doesn't eat up a lot of space to play them that way, right? So you don't have to have like shelves and shelves or a whole house to be able to store this, or an entire basement. As awesome as that is to see, not everybody can allocate that kind of space.
Well, and I've honestly I've begun to realize it's neat, and it's nice to have some collector stuff. Like, it's nice to if you've got something that's signed. I'm not the biggest Dave Jaffe fan anymore, um, but it is kind of cool that I got a signed Mickey Mania, from him when
Right.
I met him. Stuff like that is cool. I don't know that, I've got some Xbox games that, as I was ripping them down to my machine was having trouble, and I had to go download it because the disc was bad. So other than having the case, if you've
And
got a
the
case,
cases with the manuals, glorious.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if
Well,
you have a
that's a niche
steelbook,
that things like Evercade start to fill, right?
yes,
Because it is emulation, but it comes in its own little case. It comes with a manual and kind of scratches that collector itch. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. But if the on the disc side, if the disc doesn't work, okay, you got a manual and a case, great. So I'm okay with people that aren't as into the physical thing anymore. I'm not into the physical thing anymore.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, and
not getting
Greenhound
rid of what
brings
I
up another
have.
good point
But
here, to interrupt you for a minute. It said before the definitive way to play retro is the original hardware, not that it's the definitive version of the game. That said, I'm not handing my 7-year-old son a preserved collector's piece. To tie into your point,
right,
you're not going to hand him your signed Mickey Mouse cart or your pristine Genesis or whatever, right? And let him mess with it, because chances are he doesn't know how to be gentle enough with it, and the hardware's getting older, right?
One thing that I like about physical media, I haven't been collecting any physical media like on my, starting on the Xbox Box One and up that generation. But I love going downstairs in my basement and see all my OG Xbox game, my 360 games. It's like, seeing your physical library and you look at all those titles and you're reminiscing a little bit about
No,
it was so good, so good.
there's a
You
I've got
don't
a whole
have that
closet
on.
full of physical games that I open up while I'm looking for something, and honestly, it needs to be reorganized better because it's a pain in the butt to find anything in there. But it's just nice to see them in there, right?
Right. And you don't have that even if you would display it on a digital shelf, it's not the same. It's
No,
not the same.
it's not. It's like the Sega collection thing where you could buy the games for like $2 and it shows them on the shelf and you can go through them card by card. It's a nice addition, but it just feels cumbersome and awkward. It's not like actually having something on the shelf.
Right.
By the way, Pete, this one's for you. Why does Peter look like y'all dragged him out of bed while he was in the middle of some awesome dream involving Phoebe Cates in a ripped bikini?
This is not really me. You guys are just emulating me anyways.
We're just emulating Pete tonight.
We have soft-modded Peter.
Soft-modded.
You guys don't understand. Pete's not really here. He's actually in bed.
Yeah.
Dreaming of Xbox games he's ripping down to his machine.
Ripping down. Man. What about the whole... I mean, Mike, you were talking about like you ripping, or at least you attempt to ripping down your own games that you physically own, about stores that no longer exist. The OG Xbox store, the digital store. Soon we have the Xbox 360 store that's no longer, you can't purchase digital games anymore. So you're at the mercy of physical. It's, if you can get your hands on any of it. What are you guys' thoughts about, stores no longer there? It's not longer supported. They're not selling it anymore.
ROMs of some of like the WiiWare games, like the Contra Rebirth, the Castlevania Rebirth, Blaster Master Overdrive, and stuff like that. I'd have no shame emulating those because those never had a physical release.
Well, yeah.
They only.
But what about stuff that had a physical release?
Right.
Like this whole weekend,
I've never done a re-release. If they did, I would have bought it. Right. But if your Wii falls over or you didn't get a chance to buy it while it's on the store and you don't have any options to buy it, it literally doesn't exist in a physical form, so you can't even pay an outrageous price for it. How are you supposed to play it if you want to play it, right?
Right.
They haven't put it on any of the services so you can pay for the service. There's literally zero options. This game is basically gone completely, right? And that's a problem with some of the digital releases when they get pulled like that. That's kind of a problem, right? And there's going to be stuff like that on the 360 store too, because there was a Darkstalkers game there that came and went that I didn't even know dropped, right? Mm-hmm. And it's never had a physical release either.
And then you have digital games that cannot be sold due to licensing.
Right.
I mean, we see that even at current gens,
Right.
Yep.
Well, we talk about Warner Brothers. It's a good
Warner
thing.
Brothers. Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean that's yeah.
it's a good thing that I own all of the Midway Arcade treasures, because when those left Antstream, I'm like, well, now what do I do? And then I remembered, oh, I've got them all over here. And honestly, it's all of them. So everything that was lost out of Antstream Arcade, I at least have those games.
Yeah,
You know,
And scrambles, I think I agree with your psychologist friend. I think you would probably regret selling your collection because almost everybody I know that's a
I
heavy
would
collector,
too.
when they let go of those things, they're looking at the price of it online and they're just sobbing because they got it at a much better price and they want to play it again on the hardware and they can't.
Except
Because
for
you
except
don't,
for
and no
Cyrus.
matter how good unless you even doing FPGA, I don't think you're going to get that same feel, right? You're not going to get the same feel as you're going to get on the original hardware. If you want that full nostalgia, I'm, you know, 6 to 15 again, you're not going to get any better on that than you are on original hardware, period. That's where you're going to get the most nostalgia.
Except
Well,
for Cyrus, who sold his Jaguar and his Neo Geo and does
Yeah, and
not
he ends up
regret it.
buying those all again, though. That's the thing. That's the reason he's had like 3
Well,
or 15 Neo Geos.
yeah.
maybe he gets joy of buying that stuff. If you have it all, then that's it.
Yeah, I mean, every
You're
now and
not
then you
collecting
just need
anymore.
some retail
I
therapy,
mean, you're
man. I mean, you just go and buy something nonsensical. I have like a couple of ridiculous Transformers that transform themselves that I don't need, that I bought, and I'm probably going to buy another one. And some of them I have barely touched, and
yeah.
I'm probably still going to buy another one. It's stupid stuff I don't need, but I'm going to buy it anyway. There's all sorts of stuff in my house is filled with things that we don't need that we like.
Yeah. I mean, what do we really need? We need food and water and shelter.
Yeah.
But we're not running around in like some fur and a wooden spear of some kind and gather berries all day. But
yeah, Greenhouse says The Crew. I was once bitten by Ubisoft.
I was too.
And that won't
yeah,
be the last
and they rip it out of your library. Your digital library. It's like, oh, sorry, the server is no longer there.
What are some of the important consoles that can only be experienced on real hardware? I would probably argue that Saturn's probably still one of those because the emulation on that isn't great yet.
It's great if you've got the machine to do it with. So, believe it or not, on this machine that I do this show and the podcast on, it's powerful enough, even though it's a 10-year-old machine, it's powerful enough to do Saturn games. Most emulation on Saturn up to this point was rough, but once they cracked it, the emulation scene for Saturn has gone very fast.
Yeah, I would also argue the N64. The closest you can get to that is the Switch Online service with their N64 controller.
Dolphin does it,
but that thing's hard to emulate specifically because I've never met an emulator that you can really map the controls to where they feel comfortable the way they do on the actual N64 controller. It's not like a complexity thing where you can't run it. You can boot it up and run it, but the interface for it feels so bizarre that it's almost better just to have the hardware.
I was such a crazy controller.
Yes.
Scepter, Scepter said it, typed it at the same time I said it. 3DO is tough to emulate. I've only been able to get RetroRoots to emulate it.
I've had some struggles with TurboGrafx CD. I've had some struggles with because
now that I've been okay with
different firmwares for the CD-ROM games, and some of them work and some of them don't. So that one's kind of a pain in the butt. I think if you get an FPGA system, that's fixed. But
I've not had any issues with TurboGrafx CD, thankfully.
Is Apple Pippin emulated? I don't know. I've never tried.
There is, but it sucks. Oh, Apple II is hard to emulate. I have not seen a good Apple II emulator.
That's bizarre. I would think old PCs would be
not all of them
easy to emulate at this point.
I've also, what else is?
Yeah, Vinny says he's been fighting the inflation in the video game prices,
PlayStation
but he's
2.
pretty much failed. Yeah, all the prices are just
PlayStation.
going up because Vinny right now he's a I don't know if you guys know he's a retailer, right? So
Yep,
he
I do.
does his business is buying and selling these video games, and he tries not to do too crazy of a market, but the market becomes the market, right? It costs you so much to get it. It costs you so much to house it. So it's going to cost you so much when you try to sell it. I mean, that's just doing business.
Yep. No.
And collecting things you don't need is what a collector does. Absolutely.
Yep. So, PlayStation 2 is also very tough to emulate for.
What about 3?
And Sai said
Three
earlier
is
that
impossible.
his Atari Jaguar and Neo Geo have now been emulated perfectly, and he doesn't regret
Yes.
selling them. The emulated versions are actually better than the OG hardware, and that's kind of shocking.
The biggest issue I've had with emulating Neo Geo is getting the right ROM sets, because if you don't have the exact right ROM set, nothing freaking emulates it. And there's MAME, there's Final Burn Neo.
I
There,
find I have more luck with Final Burn Neo than I do MAME.
yeah,
And all the Capcom stuff, if you want to run the Capcom CPS stuff, that stuff's a pain in the ass.
yes.
Sometimes it's very hard to get past the encryption on that to get those to run.
Yeah.
However, with the way they're releasing those things in collections, you almost don't need to anymore.
Right. What else is so Jaguar? Now I'm saying it like Jaguar. Like Jaguar.
You need
Jaguar.
to say it right. Jaguar.
I haven't tried Jaguar on the Xbox, but I do agree that Big PEMU was a huge step forward for Jaguar emulation, and that first showed up on Atari 50th, which was really nice. That Mike, and the Digital Eclipse crew were able to get that in there, because there are some good Jaguar games that I would like to emulate if I could without doing it on the PC. So I haven't figured out how to do it on the Xbox yet, but I am looking.
Sorry, I got to do this again because it's going to be funny when I do it. Here we go. There we go.
Yeah, I was going to say it ran
just because it's funny.
Yeah, it ran behind Peter the first time.
It ran behind Peter. Now he's got to run in front of Peter.
It's like, because I had to step away first.
I feel better now.
So
yeah. Sonic was afraid of Peter.
Yeah. But another thing with
Pete
systems
talks
is like
when Pete wants to talk, and I try to shut up when Pete talks.
Yeah.
As we all do.
No, but another thing is like, the modern systems is what you said. It's like all online. But even like, the OG Xbox, you had, Xbox Live. And even that now is kind of like, emulated. I mean, it's using Insignia. You'd be able to, play with your friends like it's Xbox Live. The way you set it up, it feels like it's the same as Xbox Live. You change your
gotta get
the
that.
DNS. The DNS points to their main server, and secondary DNS
See,
is
I need
whatever
to grab that
whatever you want.
And then it's
like
live games on there. That could be fun. Do they have
Yeah.
the full collection on there, or do you just add the
It's
ROMs,
no, it's not. It's not a full collection, but there's actually quite a few games on there, and but yeah, that's kind of amazing that that's to crack that.
Yeah.
And it actually works.
Yeah, no, there's been a couple of legal cases against emulators, and emulators themselves are fine. And the argument for emulators being legal is there's nothing wrong with owning the emulator, right? It's the ROMs that are illegal.
Mm-hmm.
The
Correct.
emulators can be just as easily used if you have the tech to be able to pull the ROMs off of your carts and use them that way, right? So if you
I don't.
own a
Is
physical
that
copy of it,
is that even legal?
There's no
or is it?
legal ramification against you for it, because you could just as easily play it on the hardware, but you're emulating it. So they have to make the assumption that you just ripped the ROM off of your own cart, which is how they all got uploaded in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, you're not reverse engineering the hardware.
Right.
That's where because there's no copyright rules that you're that you're breaking. It's interesting. And yeah, Internet Archive, archive.org, the things you can find there, and that's all I'll say.
Is that why I
So,
downloaded 750 gigs over the weekend?
PS2 is PS2. You say PS2 is easy to emulate Galaxy, but I'm telling you, RetroArch does not emulate PS2 well. And
Really? Because I had it running on a Pi 4 and it ran fine.
Try running Need for Speed Carbon on it, and you tell me, because
I dropped on there. I mean, it was like a Neo Geo collection, but I mean, it was a Metal Slug that they had released on there, and that ran fine. It had zero problems.
Right,
I mean,
but
it was
run
still
something
Metal Slug,
that actually,
but I mean, it was on a PS2
Metal
emulator.
Slug. Try running something that actually requires the hardware to do some work. And I'm telling you, try running Ridge Racer on it and tell me because it just doesn't.
Okay.
It's always been, that's been like the one thing that's always
well, Nintendo
and I've
goes
tried
after anybody doing
emulators.
emulation on their stuff. They went after the people that were doing the project that allowed you to emulate Switch games, which I wouldn't do that personally. I consider that a little taboo because the system's current. I can go out and buy anything that's on that system. And I mean, people tell me, well, Breath of the Wild runs at 60 frames a second. I don't need 60 to 80 frames on Breath of the Wild. It's just not that intensive a game. I don't have any problems playing it on the Switch. It runs fine. By the way, hey, Oak, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm the same way, in the sense of like, if I can still buy the games to the digital store, or like I can go to any retail store and buy, the game, and
yeah, I mean,
ripping them off, downloading the illegal ROMs.
Yeah, I know there's a bunch of people that do it because screw Nintendo, right? And that's just their mentality, and that's fine. That's your business. I choose not to do that.
Yeah,
I have no problem owning a Switch. We own multiple Switches in the house. I like the Switch as a console. I think it's been a very consumer-friendly console. I think it's probably been almost more consumer-friendly than Xbox has been this generation. And Xbox has been very consumer-friendly this generation.
Depends on how friendly it is. The whole online stuff and chat.
Their online is janky. I'm not even defending their own. Well, getting into a game with each other is fine. Using their voice chat, I just use Discord. Yeah. I won't use their voice chat. Their voice chat's just jank. I'll if I'm sitting on my sofa, I'll pull up Discord on my phone and put in a pair of headphones.
You may as well just
I'll do it that way. I'd rather do that than have their application on my phone. It's just
may as well just call them on the phone.
Right. I mean, it's just dumb. So, I mean, I agree with you on that part. Like, Nintendo's online's stupid. Their online's always been stupid. They need to fix it. They've just never fixed it.
Well, they
never will fix it because...
Yeah, they don't care about it.
What emulator are you using in RetroArch? I mean, you use the same ones. I mean, you can use DuckStation for, like, PlayStation. You can use the PSXPP for PSP games. There's a couple... is it Mugen 64, I think, is one of the ones I use for N64. The Nintendo and Genesis one's just installed by default. I don't even know what one's on there. I don't care. It runs them all perfectly. But you can always download different ones, and they're all kind of marked. But, I mean, RetroArch installs a few base ones on its own, but there's so much more that you can install even for the base ones that it installs other emulators, that it's just kind of like you pick one that you think runs it the most efficiently, and then you just tend to set everything to it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm.
Oh no, Scepter! These people aren't hacking their Switch. Well, there might be some people modifying their Switch, but most people that are using ROMs of the Switch games, they're downloading those off the line and they're throwing on stuff like a Steam Deck or their computer. Right.
Yeah.
That's how they're using them.
I had that, and I agree that I have kind of an issue there.
Mm-hmm.
Where if it's something that's currently out, that's I can't do that. What I emulate back to. Yeah, I don't know what I think he's I think he might be a little.
He wants to catch you in a Pokeball. I choose you,
I
Mike Mullis.
not sure.
But what would
Oh,
Mike be super effective against?
Just be careful who you're talking to, because Mike Mullis from MLB 2K6 is a different guy than MLB 2K7.
Oh my God! Were you around for that part of the stream, Nick?
I don't think I caught it. So
Oh
or I had the
my
volume
God!
down. Because a lot of times when I'm hanging out with you guys, I'm engaging with you through the chat or what the chat's talking about.
Okay,
And sometimes I can hear you and sometimes I can't because I got the volume down because I'm
Okay.
sitting on the sofa, right?
I got to tell you this. This is, oh my God, this was great. So you know that I am.
You could get called on.
You know that I'm in on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and GameCube. I'm in MLB 2K7, right? You know that. I've told you this. I've shown
Yeah.
people the pictures. Okay. So I'm in that game on the 1988 unlockable LA Dodgers, right? So while we were looking at games online, I came across MLB 2K6 for the Xbox, the OG Xbox. It's a new Michael Jackson in reverse. And so not remembering that the Xbox 360 version was 2K7, I'm like, hey, I'm going to fire this up. I'm going to download this. I'm going to put it on my modded Xbox, and I want to see if I'm in this version too. And the answer is yes. I load up the game. I get to the unlockable thing, and there's my name, M. Mullis, relief pitcher, same exact relief pitcher. I'm like, this is cool. I'm in the Xbox version too. And I go down. I'm a black guy in MLB 2K6. It's my name. John Miller still says it. The stadium announcer still says it. But I'm black. And I was just like,
I'm not going to ask the obvious question on whether or not you consider that an upgrade or not.
Hey, he's proud he's in the game. Come on.
Well, so as it turns out, a little bit later as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm in MLB 2K7 on the 360, PS3, GameCube. What I was guessing at was my rep did not have my. I don't know why he still made me black, but I, for some reason, must not have been. They must not have had my like in-game model ready for the Xbox version, so they just put any old model on me, and it happens to be a black guy.
Scepter says you're Asian in the Dreamcast version. Hey, there's Show. Ree! What's up, man?
No, what's up, Mark? What's up, Show? So all of that is on Friday night stream before I got in with Peter and we had Back from the Dead and we played Fortnite. That's probably why you didn't watch the stream. But the beginning of that stream, just go back. Okay, but just go back.
Watch Fortnite, even when people I really like watching, I'm just not into the game.
No, it's all good.
I don't watch it. But I haven't been watching Fused a lot lately either because he's been doing Dawn Trail and I just don't want spoilers. So I'll pop in, give him a thumbs up and make a comment like, hey, not staying too many spoilers. And then I'll bounce.
Go to that stream and just watch the first 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's freaking hilarious. And I'm like, I guess at least I'm still in there. At least I'm still there. It was just so funny.
They just kind of corrected you, Mike. It's fine.
Right? Peter said it was HDR.
Yeah.
I'm
Guessing
like,
Mike had more hair before he evolved. They're talking about your Pokemon evolution.
yeah, I see that.
And Galaxy's the same way. He just doesn't really want to watch Fortnite. It's just not a game he enjoys watching, you know. So it's all good.
I don't care about that. That
I
doesn't
mean, I
matter.
watched
I'm
play it.
not.
I used to watch Lumpy play it all the time, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, why am I watching so much Fortnite? I don't like Fortnite, so I just stopped.
I'm only
Fortnite.
watching. So I'm only there because I like Lumpy and because I just hang out and talk to people in chat.
Yeah, there's
Talk
nothing
to
wrong with
him.
Lumpy. I don't go to his channel a lot because I assume he's playing Fortnite. He does a lot more than that now. I just
He's
don't end up
starting
going
to.
there for
I
whatever
give him
reason.
credit, man. He is starting to diversify, which is very cool. So
But it's not like he's hurting for people watching him. I looked the other day and he had like 4,000
no,
people watching him. So, I mean, he's doing fine.
yes, he doesn't need us little people.
Yeah, I was excited when I had 250 people watching me one day. I'm like, why are you here?
Because you got featured. I'm like Peter and I were the only channel left on Rumble that hasn't been featured yet. It is amazing. We've been here a year. We've been here a year. Chuck has been featured. You've been featured. Brian BLM just got featured.
Galaxy was saying it was about Dawn Trail. He just didn't want spoilers. Okay, that makes sense.
We're just too old to be featured.
That's what it is. Well, we're at night. We're the late night.
Well,
Nobody's
don't
up.
they need features late at night
for most people, right? Because it's usually the weekend when I do the most streaming. This is the only stream that I do that's this late in the evening, for the most part, and that's mostly because that's when it's usually best for you guys or for other guests. If it were me, I'd be done by like 7:30. I'd start at like 5 and be done by 7:30. And that's when everybody's like either eating dinner or finally getting settled and now looking for something. And then I'm all like, bye, everybody. And they're like, well, screw that guy. Which is fair. That's fair.
It's really weird, though. It's really weird when our cycle is.
Y'all are featured in our hearts.
Thank you, Sai. I love you, man. The thing, it's awesome. Weird too because I'll go through and be done at like 12:30, and 12:30 is when the rash of 50 people will come in, and I'm like, guys, now I have to stay. All right, I'll stay another 10 minutes. All right, I'll stay another 10 minutes. Guys, it's 1:30. I've got to go.
Dude, that's why I was streaming till like 8 o'clock that one night. Because I'm like...
Oh, I know. Because you're like, well,
all those people came in
people
right
are
as I was
up.
about to stop. And I'm like...
Yeah, I saw that. And I'm like...
for like another hour.
I guess you're going on for a little bit, dude. You're on for a while, my friend.
And then I was starting to crash. I'm like, too hungry. Must eat food. Wife won't help. Don't blame her. Must go find food.
She's laughing at you as well. She's going...
Probably.
So. And now I'm thinking to myself, oh, damn. I got to go and stream, and he's still streaming. Now what do I do? Do I wait? Do I hold off a minute?
I tried to get most of them to come into your stream.
You did. But so that's a problem that is not, it's okay. It's cool to be featured because you get, and I don't want to sugarcoat it too much. It's cool to be featured. I would like to have us featured once. I don't need to have it all the time. Just once. Give me one.
Yeah. Well, that's the first time a stream of mine's been featured. Now I've had a playlist featured, and that was awesome.
That is awesome. I've had a playlist. We've had
did the live stream feature because that's the stuff I put like a ton of work into. The rest of it's just me booting up and playing a game and having fun with the chat, right? And it's a way for me to play stuff and hang out with people.
Which is important.
Mike Wallace, I choose you.
Which is important. He realizes I'm ignoring him on purpose, right? At this point, he's got to know.
That's not going to stop Oak City.
I know.
It won't.
Oh, I know.
It won't. He's persistent, sir. So
Oak may
you
have
actually changed the hard drive out on your Xbox. To gotta get back on topic
Yes.
for a little bit because we
Yes, let's get back on
we
that.
Oh, yeah.
derailed ourselves this time.
Yes, we did. Well, not necessarily, because it does all go back to emulation, and it goes back to why we emulate and what we emulate. It didn't get that far off the rails. So let me hold this up. So there is now a 2 terabyte drive in this
Okay.
OG Xbox, and the connector that is here is, let me see if I can always refold it.
I
It's
like how you quantified
origami
this time, Scrambles.
Yeah. So there's a connector here that goes to the back of the hard drive. The original Xbox, as everybody, well, if you're not a techie person, if you're not an IT person, you may not understand this, but I'm going to give you the technical terms for it anyway. The old computers, 286, 386, 486, Pentium, probably up to Pentium 5, ran IDE drives. IDE was just a type of drive. The maximum storage space of an IDE drive was about 160 gigs. I've never seen anything bigger than that. SATA, which is what most That's a good one, back. That's a good one. I'm gonna get that. That's a good
really
one.
good.
I like that one. That's
really
good.
good.
That's excellent. And Oak City didn't think of that. So, haha.
Mike Mullicam forward.
So the way that this works is after IDE came SATA. SATA allowed you, of course, larger hard drives. SATA drives are what's in everything now, right? So everything up to an Xbox Series X, even your SSD drives are connected via SATA. The OG Xbox, does not have SATA connectors on it. Thus, you have to do something a little different to put a drive this size in it. So you have to get an adapter that converts IDE, which is what let me see if I can, the back of the DVD drive. See that? I'm sorry, it's trying to get it.
Okay, yeah,
up
I
on
see
the
the
camera.
ribbon cable's what he's talking
Yeah,
about, guys.
little-
That's the IDE
Yeah.
Little blue
cable.
connector, yeah.
Yeah, that is an IDE connector. A SATA connector is much different. So you have to convert it. So I had to get an IDE to SATA converter, and then I had to get a different cable for the drive, because SATA drives are faster, they transmit more data, they need more power, and the stock cable that the OG Xbox uses for the drives that came with it aren't fast enough for a SATA drive.
I was about to say, how
So
much of a performance are you getting on the SATA drive by converting it to IDE?
it's a pretty good performance hit, but if you think about the difference between running a game off this hard drive versus running it off the CD or the DVD, it's still night and day. So
Yeah,
that's
because the Xbox drive I think was like a 4X
Yeah.
drive at best.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
What's
better
up,
than
D-Ron?
what
Good
it
to see you,
was.
man.
And if you get hey, were you wrong? And if you get an SSD drive, which is what Peter got, and I'll let him go over his, that gives you a little bit better performance. The one thing that I had happen, and I'll give it to Peter, and I never got a chance to show you, Peter.
Yeah.
So the cable, Microsoft did something sneaky to keep people from trying to mod their systems. Their IDE cables were set in a specific way that was proprietary to their system, line these connectors up correctly, there's a notch in these connectors to show
Yeah.
what
I'm
up
sorry.
or down.
Let me put you
No,
in the
it's
solo view
okay.
so you can show that again.
There's a notch at the top of each connector, and the connector goes in a certain way. It's there.
Right.
Can you see as well? One of the holes is blocked.
Yes.
So Microsoft built custom cables. When you get a stock cable that you'd get out of a PC, they are wired different. So I was putting the drive in, and I was having some difficulty. So I went to pull the cable back out, and this piece that's got teeth on it that go into the cable, the piece that holds it together. So there's a clip here underneath that holds this cable in place to the connector, just snapped. So I'm sending this back. But what I was able to do until my replacement cable came back, and I don't know if anybody can see this, you may not. There are the teeth leave holes. Let me see if there you go. It leaves holes in the cable. I somehow freaking Houdini lined up each tooth to the right hole and was able to like clip half the connector back on. And I put it into the drive because this is the one that goes into the DVD drive, and the mother worked. It worked.
That's a slight miracle that worked, because you had to give you guys an example. He has no idea what pins go where on that thing.
It's
just got massively lucky with about 32
not necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily. Well, it's 80 pins, but on this, bring it back to full screen, because I got lucky. Bring me back to there you go.
Sorry.
I got lucky. There is also a pin missing on this. And so on the cable, I was able to find a place where there wasn't a hole. And I'm like, so it's got to go this way. Plus, I also knew the orientation based on how it was plugged into the DVD drive. The way I lined it up was with where the hole wasn't, and then got everything else. The fact that I got the lining right was good. And you wrong. It's not that you resoldered it. This isn't what broke. This is what broke. This is the connector. This is the part that this actually snaps in, and then snaps this thing into place so that the teeth go through the cable.
Tension on it so that the pins actually go into the slots appropriately.
Exactly. But I was able to get it to work long enough.
I didn't think Halo
to get the
2
replacement.
came out on the OG Xbox. I thought that was the 360.
Yep. No, Halo 2 came out on.
Yeah.
Yep. Because there was a multiplayer map pack. I've got. In fact, is my Halo?
What's up,
2...
Hazy Gaming? Good to see you, man.
Hazy, what's up, brother? No, my Doom is my Steelbook. I have Halo 2 in the map pack over there on my shelf. Be careful laying
your teeth with the holes. You snag a tooth and you'll never hear the end of it.
So I was proud of that, and it worked. And then today I got my replacement cable and did kind of some I did some origami to kind of fold the cable just right to make it look like
I noticed the way you had it folded so it laid down flat in there cleanly.
Yes.
Which is something you can't really do with modern cables.
No, you cannot. Well, you don't need to.
You don't need to as much because they're not as thick of a cable, and they've gotten pretty flat their own. And now he's just left the room. So he like this with you all the time too, Peter? Does he just get up and
he is.
disappear?
Yeah. I mean, you give him an idea and off he is. They're trying to find stuff. I think he's looking for a SATA cable.
No ideas or to tie him down to his chair.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm back.
Hey.
Abracadabra.
It's Vite Mike.
This is 2K7 Mike.
The 2K7 Mike.
This is a SATA cable. So as you can see,
is that the black version? Do I need to color correct? What happened?
Yes. The 2K6 version went in, the 2K7 version came out.
Yeah.
So, but this is so much easier. This is what modern machines having it, this is much easier to bend and fold, and it doesn't require a whole lot of, you can twist them. This cable, not so much. So you literally have to fold it like a piece of paper.
Yeah, you
Like
guys got to remember
basically
the
turn it
kind of
into an
cable he's holding up that the original Xbox is using. The Xbox was probably one of the last computers to really, the last types of computers to really use that.
You see
they
those
started
bends,
phasing those out. I want to say about 2005.
Well, when they switched to SATA drives, so underneath there is a fold, and then
we got a kitten raid.
The cable,
Kitty Pounce.
So
what's up, everybody?
What's up, Kitty? What's up, Ezekiel?
Abracadabra is what Pokemon Mullis yells when he attacks.
So you have to bend it like a paper airplane. I mean, really, it is like that. So Peter had a slightly different.
And the funny thing is you would think cases would be bigger then because of the cables that you had, and no, if anything, they were smaller, and cases have gotten bigger now.
Yes.
Working in old computer cases is a trip. One of my first paid intern jobs in college was working for a small insurance company, and they were trying to get everybody onto Windows 95. So that should tell you how freaking old I am. But in order to get everybody on there, you needed a 486 DX 25 megahertz processor and like 8 gigs of RAM. Or 8 megs of RAM, I think. But finding 32-pin chips that would do that, and I know this sounds alien to you guys, was ridiculous. And working with a 25 megahertz processor, even in Windows 95, was awful. And so I did a lot of scrounging of old hardware. And that's how I learned to start putting hardware together. I was working on these ancient machines, which in retrospect was probably a good thing. Because then when I actually started using, hardware made within the last 8 years, I was like, oh, this is so much easier.
Yeah. Cases are so much easier, You don't have to be afraid to lose a limb,
in your general direction.
All right, so
I will re-hit you again, sir.
So I also replaced my hard drive, but instead of a mechanical drive, I had an SSD in there. So SATA SSD. So I also needed to have the IDE to SATA connector, and also ribbon cables. 80 pins. Also had to do some origami. But the way to soft mod it. So once you have your original hard drive, Xbox hard drive soft modded, then in order to use a bigger hard drive, you kind of have to clone this hard drive. So you have to, the new hard drive has to be a slave, and then you have to sacrifice a rooster and pray to the right gods to make it make it work just right.
Chicken, sir.
Yeah, and so Mike was successful, but mine, it didn't want to do it. It didn't want to do it. It's like, oh, what should I do? Because then I found online, like, well, you could build it externally, so not on the Xbox, but using an actual PC to clone the hard drive, because you basically extract your hardware key, your EEPROM key. So you use that to and basically what they say is like, oh yeah, you use a USB dongle, and basically their scripts are all written about using, basically looking for a USB drive. Well, I didn't have a dongle. I had an old dongle that only supports drives less than 1 terabyte, and my drive was 2 terabytes, so it didn't work. I thought, well, a little bit of script hacking. Why wouldn't it work on a regular, internal PC SATA drive? So I started like messing around with the script a little bit. I knew my drive was a Samsung, so I just searched for the word Samsung, because my other boot drive was not a Samsung, so I was guaranteed, like, hey, search for Samsung, not for USB. Found the drive, was able to clone it. Was able to do it all right. Had a little snag in the for locking the drive, and they basically just the script gave an error and said like, oh, you know, maybe you should specify what uh, drive type it is, if it's ATA or SATA or something like that. So I did that, and I was able to lock it and able to put it back in my Xbox, and voila, it worked. So yeah, there are many ways to accomplish this process. I would say if you mod a lot of Xboxes, I would slap the drive in a PC because it's much easier than having to plug something and make it hot swappable and stuff. So, but yeah. So now I've been playing the good OG games like Rally Sport Challenge, which is a phenomenal game. The Outlaw
super
sports
fixated on
sports
Rally
games.
Sport Challenge now.
Ah,
Like,
that game is so
every time I
good.
see you pop in chat, you're like, "It's not as good as Rally Sport Challenge." It's just been like your mantra lately.
It is. I haven't found a solid replacement.
They're really it is hard. That was a special series. That was DICE before they got bought by EA and were forced to make Battlefield games.
Yeah.
And to be honest, guys, you don't necessarily have to do all this work to get some of this stuff running. If you have a modest PC or even a reasonable laptop, you could probably get most of this stuff set up and running. Now, they wanted to use their Xboxes to do this, and I don't know that there's any massive advantages to doing that than there is to having a Series X and opening up developer mode or just putting it on your PC or anything else. Like, I don't know that. Okay, let me.
There isn't.
Do they have OG Xbox emulators?
Is it really emulating the Xbox games, or is it acting like it's running them natively?
Natively.
Oh no, it's native. When you're running the OG Xbox games, it is no different than using the. Give me a second to get the technical term of this.
Because the OG Xbox ran the games
we need
from
a
a
few shrubberies, Greenhound, because we need to be able to make a path.
Yes. Shrubbery.
Because the OG Xbox ran the games.
Okay, so it's an OD. It's called an ODE.
A what? ODE.
So it's called an ODE, an optical drive emulator. It basically pretends it's the DVD drive.
Okay.
But that's it, and it's strictly for storage. When we rip a game down onto the hard. Now, I don't use an optical drive emulator. I have the 2 terabyte drive. So I still have the disk drive. I take my disk, I put it in a disk drive. I tell it copy disk to hard drive, kind of like you're ripping an audio CD to Windows. Geek Storm on. And then when I run the game, it's running on the Xbox. The Xbox is not emulating anything. The only time I actually emulate games on the Xbox is when I emulate other systems.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So
I have a question.
It as a way to not really have to use your drive so much on your OG Xbox, and to
That's
be able to
precisely
run the games.
it.
And well, honestly, you would probably get a performance increase at that point because you're not accessing a 4-speed drive that the Xbox
exactly
had. Because I think,
and I was having.
Was it a 2 or 4 in the original Xbox?
Hold on.
Because the PlayStation 2, I think, had a 2X drive.
This is a Philips.
Mine was a Thomson.
Mine's a Philips. And I need glasses. It probably was a 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a 2.
Give you guys kind of like a nobody's really going to understand this, but those drives got up to like 52x speed or better by the end of CD and DVD lifespans. And those had much, much faster access. So when you see long load times on those old games, even on the emulators, that's kind of intentional to kind of replicate the feel of how long it took for the game to load up. So sometimes you're looking at anywhere between like 40 seconds and 2 minutes, depending on the game, for the game to come up and launch, right? That's about how slow those optical drives were. And so when you're running that off of a hard drive, you're going to get near instantaneous load time. It's going to feel like compared to what you were originally doing.
Yeah, and
Plus, you don't have to be a disc jockey. It's like.
What was that, Peter?
Yeah.
Plus, with the hard drive, you don't have to be a disc jockey, like swapping out discs if you want to play a
Right. You
different
don't have to
game.
get up and
Like,
swap
Right.
this all the time. Exactly.
How many times do I say, "Hey, hang on, guys, I'm going to go put the the other thing was if you guys, and I think you watched it a bit. My last week's Xbox Monday Night Retro was a little frustrating because I put in Outlaw Volleyball, right? And something was going on with the loading. Something was going on with the loading.
It was too funny.
Hitting the bottle tonight, Oak? Are we?
I'm kind of
Just a
loving
little?
it.
Just a little?
probably an oak barrel.
I was like the something was going on with the drive. I'm convinced that something's wrong with the drive a little bit because loading the games it took minutes to load a game, and then replays took 10 seconds to load. I played the same game off the hard drive, and it was gorgeous. It was wonderful. So, Saturn and Dreamcast have GDEMU kits. And that's more or less what I'm looking for. So Saturn's got something called the Fenrir, which is the ODBE. The biggest issue I
mentioned
have.
Fenrir a little earlier in the conversation.
Yes, it might have been Scepter or might have been.
Folks like, nope, I got no money. This is me sober as a sailor. Wait a minute. How sober is that?
That's. I was gonna say sober as a sailor. Yeah. If it wasn't that, it was. It might have also been Cousin Born. Might have said it, or it could have been Greenhound. Somebody said the Fenrir.
What's up, Horror Stream?
Hey, R. So the problem is that it's that it's expensive to get. So when I had the Fenrir to, I don't need the card.
So I'm going to apologize if you guys keep hearing popping sounds. My neighbors are now starting to fire off fireworks. It's not quite the 4th yet, but people have been eager for like 2 weeks to launch fireworks. So they're really enjoying fireworks.
Okay, it was Scepter. Scepter snuck up to the Rumble stream and said the Fenrir. So the Fenrir, actually, that's not horrible. The Fenrir is $139, $140. That's not horrible to put something in your Saturn to basically let you put all your games on a micro SD card.
Yeah, Scepter says it's cheap enough and it works with 100%
compatibility.
compatibility.
And it's not hard to put in. I've seen the installation on it. There's no soldering you have to do. You basically just connect it to a couple of you take the ribbon cable out of the DVD drive that plugs into the DVD drive, and you plug it into this.
Okay.
You plug the power into it, and then boom. The key is putting it in a place where you can interchange the card. So there's a couple of ways that you do it. You could put it inside the case and just put a big enough card in there that you don't have to worry about it.
Thank you for popping in to say hi.
Hey, what's up, Havocs? Or you could remove the whole DVD drive and CD drive and just put that in there, and you can swap in and out the cards. I might get that later on.
That's kind of awesome, show. I'm not gonna lie. There's a guy just down the hill from me that he'll start launching at like 8 and he won't finish until almost 2 o'clock in the morning. He must spend half his yearly salary on fireworks. I kid you not. He goes all in.
Can we take a second to shout out Show? Like I haven't been able to sit in his streams lately simply because work has been kicking my ass. I haven't been to as many streams as I used to, but man, I love him and Goffo are my two favorite news shows. I thoroughly
He
enjoy
puts a
We Are the
lot of
Show.
work into that, man. There's a
I
lot of
I
homework
just
that goes into getting all that
thoroughly
laid out. I've heard him talk about it a couple
thoroughly
times.
thoroughly enjoy um I thoroughly enjoy show. I really do.
Hey, you know what? They changed something in the Rumble chat. You used to be able to click on people's name and it would go to their channel,
Yeah, other people
and
have
now it's
noted that
like,
too. Me and
Yeah.
Show right now are frenemies because he keeps kicking my ass in Guilty Gear and I can't get near him to like beat the crap out of him. So I'm gonna have to
So
learn how to fix that. So we're frenemies right now.
yeah, gotcha. So
He's
somebody
legitimately
said
kicking my ass straight up. It's bad. He's really good at
somebody
it.
somebody said yesterday that and I realized it. If you click on their name, it ats them, which I like. If you click on their avatar, it takes you
ah,
to their channel now.
oh, cool.
So
That's a
hold on.
hmm.
I think there's a newer Saturn ODE that uses a cartridge slot and micro SDs. That would be great because the cartridge slot. I use the cartridge slot for the RAM cart, but if I could also put game saves on the same micro SD, and see, that's not even soft modding. That's just adding. But that goes to game preservation because with all of the disk rot and all of that stuff that happens to these drives, that ODE is the next thing I want to do for, at the very least, my Saturn. Knock on wood, Dreamcast games have been rock solid. Plus, you could burn them if you really wanted to. If I really wanted to, I could basically burn all of my. I can make copies of
And
all of my
guys, from my own
Dreamcast games.
personal experience, just to kind of put an addendum on here, I'm all for buying collections to support developers and to support these IPs. Um, a lot of the games I can I can emulate. I've gone out and bought collections, and sometimes I use the collection, and sometimes I'll still emulate it because if the collection doesn't run good, like the Castlevania Advanced one's a little janky on computer because it's kind of hard to get in and out of because of some of the stuff they did that they didn't do on PC that they should have done to get out of the application. That I'll just emulate it, but I still bought the collection, right? Same way with the Turtles collection. Most of those games I could easily emulate. I bought the collection to support it. I can emulate a lot of the Marvel fighting game collection, the MVC collection that's coming out. I'm probably going to buy that multiple times. I'll probably buy it on Steam, and I'll probably buy it on Switch to have a physical copy. So I'm all for supporting these when they give me the option to support them. I may still use emulation because it's convenient, but I'm absolutely for supporting people bringing back these IPs, reintroducing to other people, and a lot of times I'll support them strictly to show the company that there's interest in these titles and that maybe a new title wouldn't be remiss, right? Because if you
I
don't
would
speak with
like
your wallet on some of these things that you enjoyed when you were a kid and you would like to see more of, they're not going to make it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to, let me be very, very, very clear. I bought the Castlevania collection. I bought the, yeah, right.
I almost missed that. That's awesome.
Oh, I didn't miss it. I saw it. I saw it. I bought the Atari.
Simulation, can I get like a Game Genie? Because there's some modifications to my life specs I'd like to make.
Yeah. So and just for like the Greenhound, I bought the Contra collection. I bought the Castlevania collection. I bought the Capcom Shmup collection. And because I bought those are not games that I'm gonna emulate anywhere. If I want to show those games off, if I want to play those games, if I want to stream those games, which I have done, when I go back and want to stream Castlevania, if I do a Castlevania night on my Monday Night Retro, I'm not emulating it. I'm playing it off of the collection.
Wait, did they do a Double Dragon trilogy release? I didn't even know that came out.
I didn't see that. No.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, no problem, Kitty. We love you, Kitty. Just
Night Pixel.
put that out there. We
Thank you.
love you. The other thing, like I said, was I very much bought the Atari 50th collection, and
Yeah, I didn't
I
pick that
will
one up, but
not.
then I don't do a lot of Atari anyway. I'm just not. I never was never a big
I
Atari guy.
It's,
I love that collection.
I
Now,
mean,
if they did a
it's
ColecoVision
not just the
collection, I'd probably
games.
buy
It's just
that.
like the whole, the history and stuff. It's like an
Yeah,
encyclopedia of the. Yeah.
I agree with that. But even at that, I don't think anybody's going to do a ColecoVision collection because I don't. Number one, the problem with ColecoVision is Coleco didn't make their own games, so nobody would have the license to do that. They couldn't do Donkey Kong, they couldn't do Venture, they couldn't do Cosmic Avenger, they couldn't do Ladybug because somebody else owns the rights to all those games.
What about Time
So
Pilot?
ColecoVision, Time Pilot was who was Time Pilot? Data East. Who was Time Pilot?
Was that Data East? Oh my God. Ugh.
Hang on. No, hold on. Who was Time Pilot? Time Pilot was Konami.
What's up, JDA? Good to see you, man.
Hey, JDA.
Ladybug's an awesome game. Well, my mom adored that game. I struggled with it a
Yes.
little bit, but then I'm not really good
Mine-
at a lot of those maze games. Like, I'm not good at Lock and Chase, which is very similar to Ladybug.
I like Lock and
Never
Chase.
was never great at Pac-Man.
My mom, of all people, actually flipped Ladybug on the ColecoVision, and
That's awesome.
we actually took the picture, and we actually sent it into Coleco, and they sent her a patch.
Nice.
My
I don't think
mother
my mom
got a
ever got that
patch
far,
from
but
Coleco.
she would sit down and play the game all day.
She flipped the
The
score.
bomb
I
disposal
was
game.
so proud of her.
I thought that was in television.
Yeah, I think that's Bomb Squad.
Yeah, it's Bomb Squad for Intellivision.
Yeah, which was also good.
Yeah, no, I found that one like way late when I was getting into the older consoles with you guys. Because I never did Intellivision, I never did Atari, right? I just had the ColecoVision, which was a great con. I loved my ColecoVision, don't get me wrong.
I
loved
did
it
too.
up until I got my NES, and then my NES got like all my attention. That's like when that's my, if I'm going back to a retro console just for my own nostalgia's sake, the NES is the first one I pick up, honestly.
By the time the NES came out, I had switched to PC gaming.
Greyhound says
I
I have multiple
love-
versions of the Sega Genesis titles from compilation collections. I
Yep.
only emulate what I own for convenience. No 20U, the Kishi V1 play anywhere. Yeah. Yeah, Bomb Squad. Yeah.
I got the Kishi. That Razer Kishi is legit.
I've never messed with it, but then I don't do a lot of gaming on my phone.
It's really nice. And
You know
it
what?
turns the
Hummus,
phone
my
sideways.
mom only played games until the end of till we didn't have the ColecoVision. She was never into it past the ColecoVision. So that was the only time that I ever saw her. And she plays some tablet games on like iOS and stuff like that. But she completely fell out of it for like ages.
You know why when I use my Razer Kishi is when I'm on the road and I have to, get my daily ESO goodie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh,
Honestly,
because it's
I'll take
stream
something
because
like
it's
the Switch or a
streaming,
Steam
isn't
Deck
it?
with me if I'm gonna be playing on the go. And I have a small. You know what? I could probably
That is
find that thing.
awesome.
I think I've got it in here somewhere.
That is awesome. I didn't even think about stuff like that.
What's that?
Using the phone to go to Game Pass cloud streaming and get on ESO to get your daily thing.
Yeah.
Get my daily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you lose your streak, and then it's like you can get it
that
all.
is-
I've never had a 100% streak
Wow.
for a month.
Cedric,
Wow.
I might be able to. I mean, she would probably play Ladybug, but I'd have to show her how to set it up and get to it each time, so she might have some fun with that. I haven't done that. I really wanted... There was a certain console that was going to come out at one point that I don't think is going to come out now, that starts with an A and ends with an O. And I know if I mention the whole name, I will summon like all sorts of hell from YouTube.
Start with an A, ends with an O. Anno.
It's like seeing Candyman 3 times in a mirror.
That's
But I
right.
was
We are
going to
still
give
on
her
YouTube, aren't
one,
we?
and I thought she would have a blast with that because it seemed to be the right thing to get her back into gaming, and I would have loved to have been able to do that for her.
The I was trying to think. Going back to the idea though that like what did I why did I really soft mod the machine? Number one is for emulation. Number two is to play my games. I downloaded a couple things. A couple things I used to have a long time ago that I couldn't find again, like the second Legends of Wrestling, which was for good and bad reasons hold a special place in my heart. Notwithstanding that was the last game that Legends of Wrestling 2 was the last game Acclaim put out before my Acclaim rep called me in tears one morning to let me know that he got to work and there was a sign on the door that said Acclaim was closed and he lost his job. That the infamous conversation with a very drugged up Jake the Snake Roberts. So that game has some odd memories for me, but it was a solid wrestling game.
Is my mic low again?
So
give me a minute. I'll try to fix it, man. I don't know why it's doing that.
see, I hear you okay.
Yeah,
it might
randomly,
be
what's been
in
going on with my microphone is Windows and its infinite wisdom decides to crank down the volume on like my mic.
Mine does that.
And I don't know why it's doing that, but I have to occasionally go into like my sound settings. And adjust it. It's stupid. It's been doing it a lot.
Yeah.
And I have no idea why.
It happens to me too. But there's been one or two games that I've downloaded, but for the most part, I've stuck to my collection. And I mean, I've got some good stuff that it's going to be nice to go back to and play again, like the Outlaw games. Plus, with Insignia,
that should fix it. Sigh.
Yeah. Oh, now you're louder in my ear too.
I would hope so. I mean, it was at 32. I bumped it up to 75. That's as high as I dare take it. Otherwise, it really starts to be obnoxious to people.
It does. Being able to play online is going to be really nice.
Yeah. And that's a good thing that these games are peer-to-peer, you know?
Yeah, I know exactly how to fix it now, Si. I just didn't know it was a problem. I should probably do like just a base audio recording before I go live, because that usually keys me off because it's the waveform's way too small, and will let me know that the volume level is just jacked or just preemptively checked it. Yeah, that wasn't the intention, Hummus. I do keep my microphone. I don't let it go to 100% because I found it's been spiking really heavy. It's because Windows hates you. I told it not to, and it doesn't care. Rumble Studio, StreamYard, Discord can all take control of your sensing. See, this is from the OS itself that it's doing this.
Exactly.
And it just started doing that. It wasn't doing that until like a month or two ago. Now all of a sudden it's doing it all the time. I think it's honestly just getting pissy that I can't upgrade to Windows 11 because my motherboard doesn't have some sort of security chip that it wants for me to be able to upgrade, and I really don't want to upgrade my motherboard at all right now. I just don't want to do it. If I was going to do that, I'd probably move everything to a new case, and I don't want to do that either right now. You guys need to do all this, not live, but head up on all the platforms if you can. This is on YouTube and it's on Rumble both. You can uncheck the allow applications to control this device, and Windows won't care, does not care. Interesting. I'll have to look at it more, show. Maybe I can like permanently fix it. That would be a better option. Because I had this problem with Daremouth too when I was on his. I kept having problems with my mic.
Yeah. I have it on NLG show too. It doesn't happen when I'm streaming. It only happens when
It's happened to me when I've been
I'm
streaming a couple
here.
times, and usually somebody comes in and goes, "I can barely hear you," and then I'm like, "Give me a minute."
Biggest thing I'm having lately is balancing the game audio. Now the game audio all of a sudden is low.
Anytime I load up a new game, I always have game audio issues. It just depends on like a new game.
Yeah.
That happens all the time.
Oh.
If you can, definitely let me know. Yeah, I absolutely will, show. If I figure it out, I'll let you know. Absolutely. Because I'd really like to like end the problem with that. It's super annoying. And there's no good reason for it. It's just annoying for no reason.
I know. It's Microsoft.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things. By the way, before we end tonight, I am going to kind of do this real quick because I want to show this to everybody. This is what I mean when I say Evercade. This is a emulation console. All they do is emulation. What they do is they have these various different carts. And let's see. Let's go to cartridges here. And so you take the cart, and they usually have, this one have 12 games on it. This one has 7 games. This one just has 3. And they have any number of games, and they're usually organized by publisher, right? So they get the rights to these games, and they put them on here, and then the console does the emulation for you. So any one of these will work on their console. You literally get a cartridge. I don't know if it'll show a picture of the cart. Yeah, it sort of does. Kind of does. Kind of doesn't. I don't really want to play the video on it, but you can see the cartridge kind of here. And just pop those in. Some people really swear by it and love it, and some people don't. So if you want something that comes with more of a manual, and like a plastic book, because it's like a plastic fold case, like the old Genesis cartridges that keeps the cart and the manual all in one case. And they're all numbered. So you have your immediate FOMO of missing a number. If you have OCD, I don't know that I could legitimately recommend this. And why am I not sure? Oh my God. I don't have...
Oh, Scepter says he thinks...
I don't have HCK in here.
He just disappeared.
Yeah, I thought I had him in the scene, and I don't have him in the scene somehow. I don't know how.
He left the scene. He's no longer in the game.
He's no longer in the game.
I'm trying to fix it. I keep laughing. I keep missing it. Jesus. Okay. We're just gonna go back to here where he's here. Because I'm laughing too much to fix it. I'm sorry. I tried.
Now in the back of a milk carton.
But yeah, they have one that hooks back of a milk carton. They have one called the Versus that's basically just a console that lets you put in like 2 cartridges at a time, so you can have like however many games that holds. And some of the cartridges play with each other, meaning when you put both of them in, it unlocks another game on the system, which is kind of cool.
Huh.
And the Versus actually has rotating games that you can download and play for a limited time. Usually something locked into like the next cart that they're releasing. The controllers are okay, but you can take a third-party controller and plug it in and map it. It's not that big of a deal. So it's not bad. Some stuff emulates really good. Some of it's kind of and not really worth it. Like Double Dragon 3's terrible. It has so much slowdown. It's almost completely unplayable. And there's no reason for it because the hardware is strong enough to run it. So I have no idea why it's so jank. I haven't really invested too much into it, but I know there's a pretty lively community on YouTube for it. And it's something that if you're interested in it, but you don't want to dive into a pie and you don't want to buy one of the other consoles, the units are usually like $100 and the carts are usually anywhere between like $15 to $20. And you get a lot of games in with them. So it's a good option. And no, I'm not getting paid by Evercade. I just think since we're talking emulation and we're talking preservation, it's something I would be remiss not to mention to people as an option. I thought your sound card was busted till I found the setting. Show, I thought my cloud lifter was broken because I've got my microphone going through a cloud lifter into my Rodecaster, and I thought my cloud lifter was broken or my cables were loose the whole time. And so I was thinking I was going to have to get a whole new cloud lifter until I found that setting. Okay, the emulators are actually on each cartridge. There you go. And that's probably correct because I don't think the system has enough hardware for it.
Probably not.
Watching archaeological show till I pass out from FOMO. But the carts are nice. I mean, they're neat. They're nice to have up on a shelf and kind of see them all lined up. They've got different lines. Some of them are just the base Avercade. Some of them for Commodore 64. Some of them are like arcade focused. Some of the handheld units, actually, you can hold them vertically to kind of play them in.
Yes,
that,
the new version. Yes,
yeah,
the new version of I forgot what the
they
name
call it tape
of the
mode, I think is what they call it.
Tate.
Tate mode, yeah.
Tate. Yep.
And so you can play them in that mode, which is the arcade mode. Let's put it that
Correct.
way. The way the old vertical arcade screens were. So that's how those function. So they're a neat thing. I've heard a lot of people. Fightcade's another good option, but Fightcade has some weirdness going on with it. I haven't messed with it personally, but I know Show and a couple of the other guys have used it fairly extensively. And part of the problem that they have with it is you have to have two controllers connected. Mostly because if you come in as player 2, you have to have a second controller in order to be able to control your character, which is kind of a bizarre thing that shouldn't necessarily work that way. And I know some people have had some problems configuring things for it. So that's one of those things that's been a little sketch. But it is another option that I think 9 times out of 10 would probably work good for most people. Me ready for Mundu? Dude, I don't have any problem with you talking in chat, man. I'm bringing up as much stuff as I feel like is relevant to the conversation. Or it seems like something that you're directing towards us. Because sometimes you're just kind of talking or you're talking to somebody else in chat. And I'm not necessarily bringing that up.
That and Pokemons.
Well, I mean, the Pokemon stuff's really funny. So I think we've run close to 2 hours on this one. Is there anything we really haven't covered in the state of emulation or soft modding or anything like that we should probably touch on? I know there's a bunch of options for it now and a bunch of like just aftermarket stuff, right? That's
the minis all do emulation.
Yeah, all the minis.
Minis. Oh, and the
great options too. I've got the SNES one. I don't think I could find the NES one while I was running. I think the Genesis one is still in stock in a lot of places. That's another kind of option. There's 8 gajillion freaking flashbacks for Atari if you want to go that direction. The VCS,
if you have the,
if you're really hardcore, you could probably get your hands on one. Mike got his hands on one, I think, when they went down to like $100 or $200. And I was not lucky enough to grab one when they were that price. Because that seemed like the right price for me. And they do a pretty solid job from everything I can tell if you're really into Atari, because it would bring you a lot of their PC stuff and then obviously their console stuff and a lot of their arcade stuff in one place. You know, under people that their sole focus was making this stuff as good as possible. So that was kind of another option. There's been some various different FPGA focused hardware consoles that have come out as well if you want to collect the physical carts but you don't want to try to work with the original systems that I think connect it to modern TVs. Keep in mind, a lot of these consoles, when they get modded for a modern TV, you're going to get some latency, kind of like you would with emulation, because the games were designed for a CRT TV, and the refresh on a CRT TV is like infinitely fast. It is literally blasting a signal to the front of the TV to keep the image on the screen constantly. So the refresh rate is instantaneous. Whereas on any LCD or LED TV, even an OLED, you have residual charge on each diode that's illuminated. And so you either have to blast over that color and overcompensate for that color to hit the next color, or wait for that to dissipate, which can take a long time for older games, right? The newer games, it's not a problem because they're all designed to work with those. But the older games, the technology was intended to basically have near instantaneous refresh, which is why everything feels off for people who are so used to it. What did I do, Si? I don't remember what I did. Greenhouse, the Soul Calibur and Killer Instinct are hit or miss.
By the way, I found.
Do what?
Peter, I found at Micro Center, I found a bunch of Commodore 64 minis.
Nice. Did you pick one up? Because one great thing about the Commodore 64 minis and the Amiga mini is you can put an SSD card in it. So you can put your games on it, and you know,
the
however
Atari
you may
800
maintain them. That's
yeah. The Atari 400 mini is the same way. It's all that same.
The same, yeah, because it's the same maker, and I think that's fantastic. That's how all minis should have been.
Agreed.
Yeah, so there's been variability in the minis. I heard the TurboGrafx one was a little hit or miss. I know Cy wasn't really.
The PlayStation one was horrible.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything good about the PlayStation one at all. I heard nothing but bad things.
The emulation on it was garbage.
Yeah, I kind of heard that. I mean, the NES,
so
the
let me
SNES
ask,
one, the Genesis one, all those were really well received. The TurboGrafx one had some sketchy stuff, but was mostly fine.
All right. So let me ask you guys this then, because and this would kind of be the last thing that I can think of.
Genesis
the
MIDI.
Other, oh yeah, the Genesis MIDI. Now I've heard that. See, the cool thing about the Genesis MIDI is that it has some neat Sega CD games on it, including one of my favorite
versions of that one that came out.
Yeah, I think so.
There was a Genesis MIDI and a Genesis Mini 2.
Yeah,
there were two minis.
Yeah. Well, but they had different games featured on each one.
Right. So, how about the pluses? What are the pluses doing that, because the pluses work with the cartridges, like the Atari 2600 Plus works with the cartridges.
Yes.
But I believe you can also load games in from a card.
I think you can. They never clarified whether or not you could use an Evercade cart with that.
Right. So where does that lie in all this?
I don't know. I thought that was mostly to give an HDMI connection to your old Atari 2600 games, but they never said if they were going to support homebrews, from what I could tell. So nobody was sure if their new homebrews were going to work, or if their Evercades were going to work. And I know that was a concern for a lot of people jumping into it. I don't know if that ever got answered because I didn't really buy the 2600 Plus or dive into it heavily because, again, not a big Atari guy. But it seemed like a great thing for people who wanted another. And I get exhausted seeing it. Yet another way of playing games that they have 8 gajillion ways to play.
Right. So my question is that FPGA or is that emulation? Because you can emulate cartridges. That's what the Polymega does.
FPGA, because I think it was just basically replicating the hardware with a new output so that you could play those games. And so I said some people had great results with the Mini, but he didn't. He kept losing auto sync and had glitches on some of the games, and he had noticeable input lag. Later, Greenhound. Thanks for coming in, man.
Oak, the Genesis Mini 2 had Robo Alest on it, which is one of my favorite shooters of all time. I mean, that alone, people should check that mini out for.
Yeah, you can hack any of the minis. So if you guys want like an emulation box,
the NES
on
Mini,
the cheap, or you're okay cracking those. The NES one you can crack, the SNES one you can crack, all of them, and you can put new emulators on them. You don't have to stick to like Nintendo or Sega. You can put
Yeah, because
all of them on there.
I think they're pies.
They are. They're
I'm
pies. They're pies. So they're pretty easy to modify. There's plenty of documentation out there to be able to do those. So if you have one and you want to add more stuff to it, you can absolutely do that. Or you can just stick with the base ones and just have it as a neat thing. Like I've got a Super Nintendo one that I haven't opened up that ever in here. They got it because I thought it was cool. And I just wanted to have one. Oh, okay. Apparently you can't have the TurboGrafx 16 one. It's not connected to the motherboard that way. That's weird.
Huh.
That's bizarre. That's kind of stupid.
Smart.
I guess it's one way of trying to keep you from like pirating more stuff on there, but they never released another TurboGrafx Mini. I mean, they could have done like a dozen of those with the number of games that they had out on that. Jennifer Mini 2 is a beast? I have no idea where that came from. So those are a lot of your options.
I think he's saying Genesis Mini. He's saying Genesis Mini.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's.
I was like, wait a minute. I know a lot of people want like a Dreamcast Mini. I think a Saturn Mini would be great. If you could get those to run, I think those would be fantastic.
Just remember, he's Sailor Sheets to the wind.
That's true. I think an N64 one would be cool to own just because of the form factor.
I
think that would be fun.
Yeah, I think an N64 Mini with the controller would be great.
I've got the one for the Switch. It took me forever to get my hands on one, but I do have one. I'm probably going to eventually start doing some N64 games through the Switch Online service, just so I can get some use out of that controller, and I think it'd be fun. So I kind of want to do that and get into that. I just got to figure out what day I'm going to set that up on, because I'm running out of days that I can like physically do stuff. Because there's certain days I just can't stream because I got too much going on in real life. I just can't do it, right? And there's times where I've got other things planned and I just can't do things. So it's just kind of what it is. But yeah, but no, they have some of those. And I haven't tried that on my PC to see if it maps. That would be kind of cool, is to try an N64 game and hook it up to, like, say, the Steam Deck and see how it recognizes it and if it maps things appropriately. Because that would make that controller a lot more valuable, right, in the emulation scene, if you could do that. And I think that would be fun.
I think so.
Think a 3DO maxi twice the size of normal would be fitting. Yeah, 3DO would be another one that I think people could probably sell. I don't think anybody's clamoring for a CDI Mini.
No. I think you could probably do CDI more on it. I could probably release a PC collection of CDI stuff.
Probably. A Neo Geo Mini would just be funny because by the time you made the carts for it, they would still be about the size of an NES cart, which would be hysterical.
Right. So, if you get past Zelda and Mario, because those are the laughing stock games of the CDI. CDI had a couple really neat games, one of which was a golf game that was one of the better golf games out there because of what the CDI did at the time that not many other CD systems did with the full motion video. Like, I put it up against like Lynx, which was on Sega CD. And I'm trying to think, there was VR Golf on the 3DO, which was actually really good. But I forgot what the golf game was on CDI, but it was really impressive. Hang on, I'm looking it up.
Or you re-released Plumbers Don't Wear Toes. They absolutely did. Today I crawled under a tunnel in our house. There's a lot to unpack here, Oak. No, I don't know. The CDI just, I don't know. There were so many things doing the FMV games. And the FMV games, if you're into retro gaming, you really should just look at some of the old FMV games, if nothing else, just for a laugh, right? Because some of them were truly bad. Like Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is
That was a
just
bad one.
just goofy.
Well, it's funny because after Night Trap,
Well, and Night
they
Trap's
tried
another
to
one that's
do.
really not that good of a game. It just got popular because of the ESRB rating stuff. Like,
Right.
that game would have
Well,
been
but
not
that
even
one
a
was
footnote in history if it hadn't gotten wrapped up in the ESRB stuff.
okay. But then they made another one with Corey Haim called Double Switch, which was the same type of game.
Yeah.
That one was bad. When you did it right, because there are full motion video games that did it really well. Sewer
I thought
Shark,
Sewer Shark did it really, really well.
Ground Zero Texas, which was it was a shooter. It was a gun game, like almost like a Mad Dog McCree. Well, it was a Mad Dog McCree, just with a little bit better production value. When you got to the cartoonish ones, Chopper Command, or Cobra Command rather, and Road Avenger were two incredible FMV games. Like, I will go back and play Road Avenger many, many times.
I think you've shown Road Avenger a
I
couple
have.
times because it was almost looked a little bit like Dragon's Lair, but not quite.
Yeah, it was in that
In
vein.
art style, not as good, but
It
in
was
art style.
No, it was well, it was almost like a Saturday morning cartoon from the 80s, like
Yeah,
Mask.
yeah. That's
It was
kind of what I
almost
meant
like
about the
that.
art style. It was more of a cartoony art style.
Yes.
Gabriel Knight 2 Beast Within apparently was really good.
Yeah, Gabriel Knight. I mean, if
I haven't
you,
heard of
I
Gabriel
hate
Knight
to say
2.
it because I need to check out CDI Emulation, because as I'm looking down the list of
It
games,
should work fine, I would think. I don't. The
yeah,
CDI, while it was an expensive console for the time, wasn't. It shouldn't be that strenuous by today's standards, I don't think.
yeah. Hold on, let me look and see what was under the hood of this thing.
No, the Sega CD. I had a was it Lunar Silver Knights or something like that on the
Lunar,
Sega CD.
Lunar, the Silver Star Story.
Yeah, that was a really good game. I got stuck on it towards the end because there was like all those 8 million doors on either side, and you had to figure out which one you had to go into. And I found that to be kind of an obnoxious pain in the butt, and I ended up putting it down.
Before
But up until
Bernie
then, I was having a
Stolar came
blast with
to
it.
before Bernie Stolar came to Sega and destroyed the relationship Sega had with Victor Ireland and Working Designs. Working Designs brought an F ton of good RPGs to the Sega CD and the Sega Saturn.
The Genesis is actually a little underrated in the RPG department. I feel like just Sega in general. Like, don't get me wrong, I think SNES had that more on lockdown, but the Genesis had some solid RPGs in there. The Phantasy Star series is just amazing in and of itself and worth having a Genesis to play. Sword of Vermilion was an excellent game. Shining in the Darkness is a great RPG. The Shining Force games, if you're into strategy RPGs, those are fantastic. There's a lot of them out there. Beyond Oasis isn't too bad. It's sort of a more action RPG type. It's not too bad. A lot of people love Light Crusader. I kind of struggled with it a little bit, but I know a lot of people swear by Light Crusader. And I know there's some others that I'm missing that I probably checked out, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's at least like 10 or 11, maybe even 12 RPGs right there. And then if you go back to the Master System, there's the Axe Battler Golden Axe RPG that's on that. That's basically like a Zelda game. It's not as smooth as Zelda, but it's still a solid title, and it's totally worth picking up and playing. My cat is screaming her head off. I can hear her from here. Most RPGs on the Sega CD have better versions later, like Lunar, PlayStation version was better. The PlayStation, honestly, it was massive for RPGs. PlayStation 1
Yeah,
and
it was
PlayStation
also
2 were
it was a whole
colossally
generation.
amazing for RPGs for people.
Yeah, it was a whole generation later. And really,
Yeah.
if you really want to say, I mean, the PlayStation version was better, but so was the Saturn version, which of Lunar the Silver Star Story. So yeah, you're talking about it. You're talking about games that were a whole generation later. Of course, they were better.
Yeah. When you remaster them, that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, that's what happens. But those games were games that were played. I got to play that game before the PlayStation ever got it. Like I say,
Yeah.
Working Designs, man, they did a boatload of. I mean, they really the things that they did, and not just for Sega CD, but Working Designs worked a lot with TurboGrafx as well. A lot of those games were on, and here's what's really funny about this. The ironic piece of this is the reason that Working Designs went to Sega first for all of their games is because Bernie Stolar worked at Sony at the time, and Bernie Stolar told Working Designs they didn't see any reason they didn't have any interest in non-action games, right, on the PlayStation. So originally PlayStation shunned RPGs. That's the ironic part, which is why Victor Ireland went to Sega. When when Bernie Stolar came over to Sega and replaced Tom Kalinske, I swear to God, I was in chats and forums at the time this happened, and Victor Ireland would be in these forums and message boards and he would literally call Bernie Stolar every name in the book, and then went back to Sony after the Saturn. He was like, "I'm done. I'm not working with Sega anymore." He went back to the PlayStation way later. So,
Well, I think we're probably going to wrap this up. We've been going on about 2 hours. It's about 12:30 Mike's time. I have no idea how late it is for Peter.
Same as Mike's.
Okay.
you should have said it's
we
3
should
a.m.
probably
for
start
you.
wrapping this up. I know you guys have the
Yeah.
MLG show tomorrow, but why don't you guys
Maybe.
kind of do you guys kind of do a rundown on what you think you got going on this week?
Well,
I
so
was about to say, one of you
I've
take
got
it. I don't care.
yeah, I've got
Well, we
so yeah. Tomorrow's kind of in flux at the moment. I've got a big so I have one of the reasons I haven't been so active in people's streams lately in the last month and a half and so is because my company was acquired by another company. And while they acquired us because they wanted us and they wanted our people, the downside of that is I have had to spend a ton of time transferring tools and staff and getting things integrated and such. And our ticketing system is kind of the big piece of that. And our ticketing system is getting migrated tomorrow at 8 p.m. my time. And then afterwards, I have to make sure it's up and running for our service desk, which is 24/7, and then make sure all of my engineers can get into it and all of our clients that actually use this system can get into it.
Fun.
I may be heads down for a few hours tomorrow night. So Peter might have to do something tomorrow night.
maybe I'll do something. Maybe.
B,
maybe
what's your plan B for tomorrow?
Maybe I'd play some Alan Wake 2. I haven't played that in a while.
There you go.
Or I'm playing some OG Xbox.
There you go.
Sure.
That'll
There
work.
we go. B, Tuesday night retro with Peter.
There
Yeah.
you go. So you guys got anything else going on in the week you want to talk about that you got coming up that you're excited about?
So you're gonna have 2 days in a row because you're gonna have Tuesday and Wednesday.
I guess, yeah. So we'll get something good going on.
I'll be back Thursday, even though Thursday's 4th of July. And it is going to be a long day for me. I gotta sing in a parade in the morning and then do a scout event for another parade in the afternoon. My goal is still to do a Mike's Thursday night at the arcade with Anstream on Thursday. That has been a lot of fun. I use my tank stick. I go through the Giant Slayer challenges and the new games that are in Antstream, and then I put a link to all of the games that are in Antstream in the stream description, and people can go to that list and request games for me to play, and I will play them. So that I'm going to try to do on Thursday still. Friday we could do late. I've got another gig, but it's only an hour on Friday, so we may still be able to do a Friday night with Peter or Mike. Then I'll be back on Sunday.
Okay. Well, as far as my stuff's concerned, I think I'm going to have my buddy that I normally do Final Fantasy start working with me on Tuesday. So the Final Fantasy stream will become a more regular thing because we're going to start pushing through the main story. Part of the reason I haven't been on with that one a lot lately on Tuesday, other than being randomly exhausted from doing this stream till late in the evening and then getting up super early in the morning, and just general fatigue, has mostly been that we're not doing anything as a group. Everybody's kind of doing their own individual thing, and my character's sort of in limbo because I'm duoing it with one other person through the main story stuff. So I haven't been pushing that. So what I might be able to do is to round him into Tuesday, and then we can dedicate that to Final Fantasy Day and start catching up more quickly. Because that's been part of our problem is we'll play once every couple of weeks because Thursday gets wrapped up into something else. So that kind of fixes two things. So that can kind of become a more regular thing. Wednesday's going to be kind of an on and off thing with the fighting game stuff. I may, depending on what's being played, I may mix that in with either some StarCraft or something else. Because not all the games that they're playing are ones that I'm comfortable playing with other people. I'm just at a point where I'm not having as much fun with them as I should, and the frustration's kind of coming out on other people, and that's not fair to anyone. My bitching should stay my bitching. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that and kind of work in more into some of those games to where they can kind of become more of a mainstay thing and less of a frustration thing on my end. I do think they're doing Killer Instinct on Wednesday, so I may pop in and do a stream on that a little bit. Depends on how long they play it. Because I'd like to see them do a lot of. I'd like to see Killer Instinct become a regular. I think it's an excellent game. I think it's worth learning. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it would be good to start learning to play it against other people and watch your skill level come up. I'd also like to see stuff like Street Fighter 6 come in. Teaching people that game and getting them up to speed on that game, I think would be a lot of fun too. But it's all a matter of what they're willing to jump into and whether or not they want to spend the money on it too. Because some of them are more current and they're expensive. The nice thing about Killer Instinct is it's free to download. And if you want the whole game, it's like sub $30. So it's not very expensive.
And in Game Pass.
Yeah, and it's in Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, you can just download it and play it. So there's that too. So it's not that big. It's not as big of a deal to try to get people into that one. Street Fighter 6 I get because it's like a $60, $70 game, and then there's 2 season passes, and that's a lot of money. It's like $200 by the time you're done. It's like crazy. So I totally get that. I think you guys will have fun with it, Joe. I think there's going to be some explaining to do on the beginning of the game so you guys kind of understand how some of the stuff works, which I'm totally cool doing. It's just a matter of whether or not you guys want to just like throw hands or whether or not you want to take a step back for a moment, kind of start learning some of the nuances, right? And then work it from there. Some of you guys may already understand it. You may have already played it before. I have no idea. I don't know what anybody's skill level is on it. I just know I love it. I know I'm probably not very good at it, but I've always been a big fan and a big advocate for Killer Instinct. So the more interest gets shown in the game and the more the game's being played, the more the chances are Microsoft's going to take notice and maybe have somebody make a new game. So we'd love to have a new Killer Instinct. It's been since like 2013 since we had an entry in the series, so it's way overdue. And so I would love to see that one come back. So... And Thursday, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be doing anything on Thursday. It depends if people are coming over. If not, I might work another stream day and then. But at some point, I have to stop and spend time with the wife. Otherwise, she's gonna be like, "You never spend time with me," and she's not wrong. If I'm streaming all night, so it's fair. But that's kind of how my week's going. Saturday and Sundays are the normal thing. I'll probably go back to doing Mega Man on Saturday. I just was in the mood to play StarCraft, and I did. I played the hell out of StarCraft. I did like 4.5 hours.
Dude, I went and downloaded that whole freaking soundtrack.
Oh, it sounds amazing.
The soundtrack was so good.
It's so good.
I didn't I'm like, for a minute I thought you were Spotifying music. Some of that stuff was.
Hope you're able to return to your dream. I hate it when I get interrupted during my special moment. He's talking to you, Pete.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, grab it and get it installed. It's gonna take a minute, man. I think it's like 50 gig. So it takes a little bit to install, and then you're probably gonna want to run the setup and stuff. I think before you go online with it, it has to do a performance test before it lets you go online. So you're at least I don't think you have to do it in your trial matches, but it does have to test your settings before you go online to make sure that it can run it and you're not going to be like killing everybody's frame rate when you're playing. So I would do that at least. Even if you don't even get in a match or anything, just try to get that done. So yeah, that's kind of my week. I'll probably go back to Mega Man on Saturday. I would like to push on Mega Man 5 is what I'm on now. And then I'm going to finish 6, and then I'm probably going to take a hard stop on Mega Man for a while. I was just burned out on Mega Man last week, and I needed a break. And I'm kind of feeling the burnout on Mega Man. I've beaten like 4 of the games, so I'm kind of just burned out on Mega Man. Yeah. I love them. I just need a breather. They're great games. And then Sunday will be Sega Sunday. So I'll be doing more Sega games on Sunday. Nice. And I'm going to start trying to figure out what I want to do is I'm going to start shaking up how the streams go. Because I want to start doing more like either history stuff or trivia stuff or things like that. Because I'd like to see anyone who's in chat kind of more engaged. And I feel like me just playing a game isn't really kind of getting people engaged. So I want to eventually figure out a way to do that to where I don't totally feel like I'm ripping off Panda, but I'm still ripping off Panda a little bit because he's very good at that. And kind of get people a little bit more, I guess, invested in engaging on the channel. Because the whole point of doing that isn't for me just to play a game. I can do that offline. I'm really doing it to try to engage with you guys, right? That's the whole goal. And so the more you guys engage, the more I can engage back with you. And I feel like the more fun it is kind of for everybody. So that's kind of my goal. But that's where things are at with me. I'm going to go ahead and call it here. It's been great in having Peter on. Peter, anytime you want to come on, man, just let us know.
Sure.
And you're always more than welcome on the show. Absolutely. This was just the first time I was like, we were going to do a totally different topic. And he's like, yeah, we can do this. But Peter kind of wanted to talk about this. And I'm like, wait, Peter wants to come on? Yeah, absolutely. Let's just do that then.
Yeah. So just as an aside, the hardware, I don't know why I'm looking this up. The hardware in the CDI was not that bad.
Oh no, the CDI was expensive, dude. It was a $600 console.
It was expensive.
I
it absolutely
the hardware to be pretty solid.
The hardware is actually pretty solid for what it does. 32-bit CISC chip, has a 15 megahertz clock speed, does 512 by 480, can do 16 million colors. That's
Peter, does he do this
not
to you?
bad.
Like you're ready to end the stream, you've got everything tied up in a nice neat bow, and then he just rips the bow and all the paper off?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, all right. Just checking.
Sorry. Go ahead. Hold on. We went down the rabbit hole of CDI, and now I want to emulate it.
I didn't go down the rabbit hole of CDI. I never want to go down that rabbit hole. I didn't know such thing, sir.
I now want to check this thing out. Okay, carry on.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody who came in. I appreciate it. If you haven't, I'm going to put this out there one more time. Like, sub, do that to the NLD channel. Do that to my channel. Do that to pretty much everyone that's in chat. There's a lot of awesome channels in the chat. If you haven't checked them out, you should. There's a lot of really great content creators, passionate about what they do, passionate about engaging with the audience, and just loving what they're doing. And you owe it to yourself and to them to check them all out. But till we see you guys again, have a great night. Happy gaming.
Play on, gamers.